Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Deliberately Intentional with me, Remy Fagbon. Today's episode is a good one. It is centered around conflicts. That's the biggest issue that a lot of people have in their relationships, in their friendships, in families, even. Today's episode is titled Fight Right, Mastering Healthy Conflict in Relationships. When we think about conflict, most people would automatically be filled with anxiety. You're either the person that runs towards the conflict or you're the person that hears it and panics. You don't want to bring up your thoughts. You don't want to say anything. Or you feel that whatever you are going to say is going to be met with opposition. Nobody's going to hear it. The thoughts that come through people's mind, pass through people's minds, they're varied. But whether you like it or not, conflict is bound to happen. How do we deal with it? Conflict can affect relationships in so many different ways, and its impact is varied. It kills the love, it kills the intimacy, it can kill trust. It's definitely is going to kill the connection that you have with each other. So, how do we deal? Believe it or not, where you learn how to master how to deal with conflict comes from your childhood. If you're the kind of person that anytime you ever had anything to say, you were hushed, then guess what? You're not going to be used to speaking up because you're automatically going to remember each and every time that you were shut down as a child. If you're the kind of person that they shouted at you, then it's again the same thing. There's so many different ways that parents unknowingly have handled their children's thoughts, expressions, emotions, and whether you like it or not, that is what carries over into adulthood. So when you get into a relationship, both of you are coming from two sides. You're coming from, in my case, if I'm using myself as an example, I'm coming from the side that no matter how difficult the conversation is, I'm going to have it. I had to have it because being the oldest girl, nobody else was having it for me. So I knew I knew I might get beaten. I knew things might happen. I still did it anyway. And each time I pushed through to do it, it just made my skin much tougher. That has now become the adult that initially didn't know how to have healthy conflict. I felt like, yeah, I'm going to blurt it out any which way I want to blurt it out. I called myself Blunt Remy because I was brutally honest. But it was also because the worst that could happen to me has happened. I'm used to saying what I needed to say and being beaten. Nobody taught me then that, there's a way you can say what you're going to say that's not going to come across offensive, that it might not be rude. I just blurted it out any which way. My dad never corrected me and said that, okay, this is not the right way to say things. I don't think my friends knew how to correct me because everybody just kind of just took me as I was. Oh, she's blunt. And it wasn't until I got to marriage that I realized that how I was could be harmful to my relationship. I'm really happy that I figured it out with my husband to a certain degree because if I had not, that same brutal honesty would have impacted my son. So let's go back to that conflict. How can you handle yourself differently? How did I teach myself to be different? Our separation, that's why I say sometimes when things happen in your relationship, you realize that you can learn from it. It's a teachable moment. I think first I was a malice keeper because if I tried to speak to you and it didn't work, then I was just like, okay, you just don't want to listen, and I would just keep malice. That means that I'm not talking to you at all. The other part is I didn't know how to give grace, meaning like, okay, let me say what I have to say, but let it not be accusatory. Let me not make the other person feel bad. I didn't care about what anything I was saying was impacting the next person, whether you had an ego, I'm not hurting you. I didn't mean it maliciously, so I'm just saying it because it's real. But just because something is real doesn't mean that you don't have to find a better way, a palatable way to say it. And that's one of the things that you have to learn how to do with conflict. People often think that when you don't say something to someone, it means you're swallowing your own identity or you're not letting your own opinion come out and that you've done yourself a disservice. If you're being patient and you're picking your moments correctly, you will still say what you need to say. I still say everything I need to say. I just pick my moments. Some things you realize, and this is where we come back to the compromise. Remy of before didn't understand that word. I saw something, I said it. Whether it was the right time to say it, whether you were in the mood or not, it did not matter to me. And that's something that a lot of people probably do. I saw something right now, I have no patience. I'm telling you right now, whether we're in public, whether you're in the middle of a call, whether you're with your friends, it doesn't matter. This is what I saw, I'm saying it now, instead of waiting for the right moment. Choosing the right moment is the biggest difference between something being successfully processed and understood by your person and for it to go in one ear and out the other. You'll feel that, but I've been saying it, but was the person actually hearing you? And yeah, most people sitting and listening to this might say, how is it my responsibility to make sure you were listening to me? Do you want it to be successfully heard or not? I always say that even if your intent is to tell someone that this is what they've done wrong and this is how it impacts you, if the message isn't received in exactly how you meant it, you haven't actually been successful now, have you? A lot of us are so busy trying to tell the other person, excuse me, a lot of us are out here trying to tell the other person how you're feeling. This is how it made me feel. This is what you did that was wrong. Blah, 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 blah. You were saying all these things, and yeah, they're important to be said, but is the person able to actually fully process what you're saying? And the answer to many is no. So how do we proceed? One of my key things and what I've learned to do is I pick my moments. I think that has helped me so much. The other part is I've learned that he's never going to be me. A lot of us are not thinking like that. Our biggest conflict is because we think, I wouldn't do it like that. Person isn't you. I can't believe he did that. Do you really know this person? I would never do that. Again, not you. Most of the scenarios, if you actually just removed yourself from the situation and said, this is who this person is, half of what you're mad at, you would not be mad at. I'll give you a classic example that I do with my husband all the time. Back in the day, I used to be mad. Why can't he pick? Why does he always have to lose his phone? Why does he always lose his glasses? Why does he? And then it would irritate me. Of course it would irritate. It would irritate anybody. You might have just sat down to eat. I can't find my phone. Or I can't find my glasses. Can you help me do this? I'm like, but where did you put it? Oh, I don't know. And that's not me. I know where I put everything. I know where I left it. I am organized. He's not like that. The minute I started to accept him for who he was, meaning he is most likely going to look for his phone. He is most likely going to lose his glasses. How can I be 10 steps ahead of that? Because that's just the way, see, this is how I'm different. That's how I think. So as he's forgetting something somewhere, I'm immediately picking it up. As he's lost one pair of glasses, I brought another one so that I'm 10 steps ahead. That's not me though. And if you look at it like that, and I keep saying this, that you got to remember your person is different from you. That is our biggest conflict most of the time. He's going to say things his way. I'm going to hear him saying it, and I'm going to say this is what he's trying to say, but this is how it came out. This is where we go back to knowing our partner. But let's even say that it's not about his personality that we're talking about. Let's say it's about a topic, politics, child raising, date night. It could be anything because we have all these differing views. Let's take how we want to raise the kids. You are most definitely going to have two different views. Even people that grew up in the same household have two very distinctly different views on how they were raised. One person is going to think that how I was raised was not so bad. The other person is going to feel like, oh my God, it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. So if that's the same thing in a household, you can imagine when two couples come together, of course it's going to be different. So who has got the patience to get the other person to the page that they want to get to? This is where I talk about compromise. This child that you want to raise, or these children, half his, half yours. His views matter, your views matter. If you give to him, he would also give back to you. There, remember, we go back to, if you haven't watched the episode on CEOs, go back and look at it like that. Those little kids are your mini companies. Both of you have got to make decisions regarding your kids, how to raise them, education, friends, social, etiquette. You both have got to agree. These conversations need to be had not in the middle, not in front of school. You need to have it at home. Sometimes it might get heated. Sometimes you might not agree. Leave it alone. Come back to it. Have an idea of all these things that can cause you conflict and try, again, key words here, try as much as possible to keep each conflicting idea to that conflicting idea. Don't let it spill over. Don't let the fact that you guys had a disagreement over one of the things you wanted to do with the kids or vacation or holiday, whatever it is, don't let that spill over into the next meal you're going to be having. Or don't let that spill over into the fact that, okay, you're going to bed and you're turning your backs on each other. Still cuddle. Remember that we had a conflict. It's not the end of our relationship. That's what a lot of people do. Men specifically, you feel like you got to win. It's a war. Your wife is not your enemy. Your wife is not a combatant. You're not at war. It's a conversation. She's meant to have an opinion. You are meant to have an opinion. Both of you are meant to agree. Both of you are meant to compromise. Having a spouse disagree with you, I feel like that is actually a beautiful thing because it gives you another perspective. I've never felt that I needed to have people around me that kissed my ass. I've never liked that. I'm being 100% honest. I've always wanted people to challenge me. I've always wanted people to get me thinking. And those are the kind of people that I surround myself with, the kinds of people that are going to help me grow. When people tell me that, oh my God, you're so smart, I became smart because I listened a lot. I argued a lot. And so, but as much as I argued, I was listening. I argued because I had, like, you're saying something to me and I'm immediately thinking, but what about this? And what about that? And what about that? The more we went back and forth on it, the more I learned. And that is what has helped me grow. Now, granted, now I don't have to argue. I don't have to have a debate to learn. But that is what's going to happen in your relationship and why I call relationships another version of higher learning, a more intimate version of higher learning, because you're about to learn a whole lot about yourself. Conflict, unfortunately, is bound to happen. You, two peas in a pod, a set of twins, people cannot just see the same point of view. We're gonna have differences. How we handle those differences is key. So instead of you running away from the conflict, try to find a way to do it in the healthiest way possible. One of the key things you have to understand about conflict is the fact that it exists. You're going to have conflict at work. You're going to have conflict and when I say conflict, it doesn't have to, I'm not saying that you need to get to blows or it's going to be physical, just that you're going to have differences of opinion. Anywhere where there's a group of people coming together, there's bound to be conflict. The goal should be that the conflict is managed in a way that it doesn't explode. It's not bigger than what it is. But all of these still comes back to what you've been raised with. If you've learned how to handle yourself the right way from your home, then you're probably never going to be the person to explode on anybody in public. But if you've been bullied, if you've had any kind of abuse situation, if you felt that you've been stifled in any way, there is no guarantee how you're going to handle conflict because nobody knows what's going to trigger a thought or a memory of something that you've probably repressed. That's one of the reasons why I say almost everybody walking the earth needs therapy one way or the other. But let's go back to conflict in relationships. Let's go back to conflict, period. It exists. I want to teach you guys how to handle it the right way. And the biggest key there, the biggest tip I can give you, remove the emotion. If you understand that, yes, I love this person, he's not just going to roll over and just agree with what I'm saying. I know that I need to say A, B, C, D. I need to either convince or I need to state my case. Take the emotion out of it. Don't get angry over their differing opinions to yours. Half of the problem is solved. Most of the time, the reason why conflict gets out of hand is emotion. Either resentment from something that has happened in the past, might not even be tied to that person, or anger, which is either, again, from the past or something that person has done, or maybe something you think they should have done before. They didn't do the right way. They didn't handle themselves the right way. One of those things is going to make you get angry. Betrayal for some. A lot of men and some women feel the minute you say no or the minute you have an opinion that differs to theirs, oh, You must not love me. You've betrayed me. That's not necessarily true. Just because you got married, that doesn't mean that you're just automatically going to agree on everything. I do not automatically agree on many things with my husband, and that is okay. We disagree to agree. But when it comes to key issues, I'm also very, very proactive. I might want something 6 months from now. I'll start talking about it 6 months from now, knowing that it's going to take him a bit of time to get where I'm coming from. I might be faster. He doesn't need to do that with me, because if he even says it, I've already like, okay, if I haven't already thought of that thing, maybe after he's like halfway through, I get where he's coming from. I'm like, oh, it seems doable. And I'm very fast in my way of thinking. It takes him a little while. He wants to process it. He wants to think on it. I have to give him that. Part of what causes conflict to get bigger is us not giving our spouse that grace. I used to have the biggest problems when I would expect him to give me an answer immediately, because I used to look at him and think that, why can't you be like me? I used to be like, I don't understand. You just don't want to answer? And I'd keep going. And he's like, wait, I need a moment to process. You're going a mile a minute, and I'm trying to get it a little at a time. The more I understood him, the less conflict we had. I'm not going to make it sound like it's perfect. Whether you like it or not, some things we may have covered and some things we've never covered. And I have no idea what might be, because now that I'm in menopause and he might be doing something, I have no idea how we're going to address something new that we've never tackled before. But our foundation being what we've changed it to become, we have a good way of handling conflict, meaning, hey, is this a good time? I need to talk to you about something. We pick our moments. We give each other the grace. I give him time to process. All of that. A lot of that. And I remove the emotion, please. Let's not forget that. All of these are things that you can do too. One of the other key things is, when you do have conflict, how do you bounce back from it? Most of the time, when I was much younger, one of the things I used to do, because I did not know any better, was I would not go back to him. We were never circling back. And that's what became malice. We allowed things to linger. Every time you allow any kind of disagreement or conflict with your spouse to linger, it creates a disconnect. You are not going to want to be intimate with the person that you just had a major issue with if you haven't closed up that gap first. The gap closing has to happen first. You have to at least acknowledge that, hey, I get where you're coming from. I may not agree with it. Can we talk about it later? You got to give this person something. You can't just leave them guessing and then want to go right back to where you were, because it's going to make them feel like you're not listening to them. So a lot of the time, even if there's a long list of steps and there are many books that you can get on this, but healthy conflict does exist. I know that sounds weird to put those two words in the same sentence, but it's the truth. It does. You can still fight the right way. Your relationship no relationship is conflict free. Anybody that tells you that their relationship has zero conflict, I'm telling you they're lying. I'm just being 100% honest with you. I have conflict. My aunts that's been married with her husband, I've been together 50 years, they have conflict. Everybody has it. How we're managing it, that's the key. So if we can find healthy ways to resolve our conflicting issues, our differing opinions, so also can you. That should be your goal. Don't keep saying he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. There's a way to get through to him. There's a way to get through to her. You've got to find it. Of course, there are people like me that can help you, or you can find people around you. Somebody can get through to them. You need to learn how to. Somebody can get through to you. He needs to learn how to do that too. And that's what I'm going to leave you guys with. Keep trying to find a way to resolve your conflict the best, healthiest way possible. Thank you guys for joining me on another episode of Deliberately Intentional. I hope you can use something I've given you today to make your relationship that much better. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.